We begin with something which is very, very indirect towards the theme what we are having for this evening. It's very important and it's very valuable when one can understand it in a little bit more deeper way, and that is why it makes a big difference when it becomes clear that it's not a question of collecting information and knowledge, it's a question of recognizing the possibility of applying and benefiting from what we understand through living it. So, before we come to the theme itself, I want to say 2-3 other things which are a little bit far-fetched in the first look, but it has a great relevance in this. One thing is when I was growing up, in my childhood, I came across the sayings of some people who are very insightful, and one of them was saying, whatever be the religion, whatever be the culture, whatever be the background of the person should be good. I didn't at that time take it as something so important or so valuable, but it stayed somewhere, and then later on I realized that it has much deeper implication than what appeared to me at that time. Because you realize how the basic orientation and the basic quality of someone reflects and manifests everywhere in whatever we are doing, wherever we are, in whatever context we manifest. That is one thing. And the another thing, which is a report which I was coming across in the internet about a tribe in Africa. This tribe is known as the Himbas. They found it a little interesting that they celebrate the birthday not on the day when the child was, in the normal sense of our understanding, born into the world, but they say they celebrate the birthday according to the time when the mother who had the intention to get the child was having this thought. So it's a different way of approaching the reality, different understanding. So when I just read in the beginning part these aspects, I found it interesting and curious, and I was reading on. And it goes like this, that when a woman wants to have a child, that first of all she goes into some specific area where they have for people who want to allow a deeper connection to the nature, to life, to their reality, to themselves. She goes there and waits for a song for the child, song for the soul of the child. And this is very interesting because she waits. She's not doing something, she's just waiting. She's in this receptive mood. And then at some point when she has the feeling now the song is there, she starts singing that song. And when she feels clear, okay, this is the song, then she comes back and sings with the whole family. And then she looks for the man with whom she wants to have this child. And when it all comes together and they go into the process during the pregnancy, all through, very often this song, which is for the soul of the child, is sung. And this is interesting, fascinating in itself, but what was more deep and more fascinating was further aspects connected with it. And that is, when someone from this tribe is doing something which is unsensible, which we call something bad, something evil, something criminal, something which is destructive, they have a different approach to deal with that. They encounter it in a different way. And as you can somehow already imagine, they ask this person who has been making this mistake or unsensible approach to come into the middle of a gathering where all the people from the tribe are coming together. And rather than asking him questions and, arguing or trying to punish him in this way or that way, what they do is something very different than what we are normally used to. They start singing the song of the soul of this child, of this person. And their understanding behind it is so deep, so valuable, so basic. And it made me feel very happy to hear that, because that has been my insight also, that deep within everyone is innocent, deep within everyone is good, deep within every human being is part of that mystery, part of that wonder, part of this inseparable, mutually connected reality. So, rather than punishing the person, being hateful, revengeful, wanting to give the person some guilt feeling and condemning the person, their understanding is when the person again reconnects to his essence, to his soul, to his deeper reality, then in that quality he will be healed and he will not continue with that approach which is unsensible, destructive. How deeply they are practicing it, how far they are going with it, I don't know the further details of it, but this perspective itself is very, very valuable. And in a way, that is what all those who have been looking deeper into the human nature has been addressing in different ways. That rather than fighting against the evil, fighting against the negativity, help to bring the right understanding, help the person to see and respond to the reality in the right way. And that is what actually is relevant in our theme for today. The real hope for us human beings and for our earth lies in this aspect, that we don't pursue the approach of getting trapped in this idea of duality where we fight the evil and go into the same process of anger, hatred, bitterness, revengefulness, condemnation. Because that is a trap. It is important to make a differentiation between these two aspects. One is to realize what is unsensitive, what is not good, what is unhealthy, what is unintelligent, what is going against the flowering of the human potential. And to respond to it is very important. But when we get ourselves trapped in our concept of rightness and become also angry, bitter, condemnatory, destructive, then we are falling into the same trap where the other has been falling into. And this is what is very important to realize. It's not about just being nice to somebody and trying to be pacifistic and trying to cover up something. And no, it is genuinely understanding the deeper nature of our reality and begin to respond from that true basis. And the beautiful thing is, those who have looked deeper has also come to realize that when you are really in touch with your deeper state of beingness, of yourself, of your undivided state of reality, you experience not only deeper understanding for yourself and each other, you experience spontaneously a quality of peacefulness, quality of relaxation, a quality of insight, and above all, very important, spontaneously a state of joyousness, wellness, lightness, harmony. And this is very, very important to understand it in the right way, because without confronting it in a deeper way, we are used to the approach of fighting the evil. And we know that what we are doing in the modern societies is trying to fight the evil, and in fighting the evil, we are strengthening the blindness in oneself and in the other, pushing each other more into an unconscious level of being like an animal. And let me clear it first. When I say being like an animal, for an animal to be in its natural state, it is in harmony. But for a human being to stay on this level of the animal is not a healthy state, because the human being is given a chance, a potential, not only to be different, but to understand the nature of our own reality, and through that find ways to manifest the most beautiful qualities of deeper understanding, of compassion, of love, of friendship, of the recognition of the interconnectedness. Of course, in human life we have the danger. We, in our capacity to understand, to live, to realize the potential of consciousness, we are standing in a point where we can go in both the directions. If you go with the deepening of consciousness, we will discover, we will understand, we will flower. But it is not easy. It is like climbing up. But to slip and to fall into unconscious and blind reaction and use our knowledge, use our capacities to hold to strengthen, to settle in the blindness, that is what manifests as evil, as destructivity, as inhumanness. So the human being is capable on one side to be so loving, so compassionate, so beautiful, so full of joy and benevolence, but the human being can also fall and get trapped in a one-sided perception where we are bound to certain conditionings, where we are bound to certain settlements of beliefs, concepts, attitudes, fears, greed, and become so destructive like no other living being can be. The human being can become so inhuman, so unloving, so destructive, so unsensible to the suffering and the pain which we can inflict to not only other human beings, also to all the other living beings. That is why the more we understand, the more we look carefully, the more we can recognize that there is a great urgency in human life to recognize the possibility that we can not only be good, we can also be very destructive, we can also be very evil. In my way of interpreting or understanding languages, Etymologically, they may say it in a different way, I don't know. But in my understanding, the word devil comes from the will. When we are trapped in our will, I want it like this. I know this has to be like this. And if we just go on blindly in our settled way of perception, which is not a perception in a deeper sense, which is a projection, but that needs further consideration to understand that. When we see that we are not seeing the reality, we are projecting through our past. We are projecting and interpreting on the basis of the standards and values which you have collected. When you can be ruthlessly honest with yourself, when you can have the courage to face things the way it really is in oneself, that is what it means to face the reality, face the truth, which is in the beginning very uncomfortable, very frightening, very disturbing. But that is what helps you to go beyond the inner division, because you are not fighting within yourself against the so-called bad. You are accepting, you are trying to understand, and through that you are allowing a deeper perception of the wholeness of the reality. And in that way of perceiving, you see the same situation, the same factors in a different light, in a different context. And your response will be an answer coming from insight and intelligence, and not a blind, one-sided, mechanical, unhealthy reaction. So, getting trapped in the will means getting trapped in this conditioned idea of oneself and reacting on the basis of that. That is what I call the will. So we are carrying the so-called devil, which is, in other words, the will, the entanglement in that, which easily happens, which is part of a conditioning and part of the process of development. Or we can see that and see that we need to go beyond my settled way of looking at things. We have to accept and consider that everybody has different conditioning, different backgrounds, and begin to incorporate the possibility that others see it differently. Others experience the same thing in a different way. And this is very, very important, because the more it becomes transparent to yourself that my perception is my projection, and this is one of the ways of interpreting, which is for the practical functioning, having a relevance, but it is not the truth. It is not seeing the reality the way it is. It's a very uncomfortable fact to admit to oneself. But whether it is comfortable or not, it is how things are. And our chance is, when we can see that, accept it, and face it in the right way, we become capable to allow the deeper intelligence, the perception through the sensibility of our heart, a perception which is inclusive, a perception which is not a projection through a narrow idea of oneself, but being in touch with the interconnectedness of the reality. And this is a very valuable possibility in human life, because we can realize it. We are having the capacity as a human being to understand, not only understand ourselves, because interestingly, when we understand ourselves more deeply, spontaneously we start understanding the other two more deeply. When you see that you are unique, there's nobody else like you in this manifestation of life, it already will give you a shock, but a beautiful shock, because you see that you are unique. You are not just accidental here. There is some very great, very deep, very playful, very aesthetically sensible intelligence and creative process, whatever name or whatever way we try to indicate it, that has made it possible that everyone is unique. Come to it, come on, see that clearly. What does it mean? What are its implications? That means, how can we compare ourselves with anybody else? Of course, we can play games. For example, we can say, who can run from this point to that point? Who is fast? Oh, you are faster. Wow, great. Or you can throw the ball from this box, this basket to that basket, or who can kick the ball into the goal post. All games, beautiful. Play. And all our achievements in the game of the life is very similar. But because it is connected with possibilities of misuse, because it's connected with possibilities of power and distraction, we have a greater responsibility. It is possible to misuse. It is possible through our misunderstanding to create chain reactions which we may not have intended, but which happens because we are not understanding the nature of the reality. And once we are getting entangled in a chain, it's very difficult to see through it and to come out of it. So, entanglement in the will means entanglement in the blindness. And interestingly, in the Christian background, this very prayer of Jesus when he was in the most painful and difficult situation of his life. One moment he was thinking that the Creator is not compassionate to him anymore. The Creator has forgotten him. So he was complaining like every human being can be at certain moments, "Oh Father, have you forsaken me? Have you forgotten me?" But next moment his remembrance came. He recognized, what am I saying? And then his prayer changed. And then it became, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, not my will." And look at this word will. My will or thy will. Thy will means that what is coming from the awareness of the wholeness of the reality. Thy will is referring to that state of consciousness where one is not trapped in a one-sided projection, what we normally call the egocentric state. And this is very important to realize it, that our trap is in our one-sided perception, in our belief that the way it appears to us, this is the reality, this is the truth. And because it is very uncomfortable to question that, it feels frightening because we don't have any ready answers. And when we don't hold to this familiar, habitual way of interpreting and labeling, we feel easily out of balance, lost. We start getting afraid. When I have nothing to hold to, then anybody can make anything out of me, something can happen. So out of the unclarity, out of the fear, the human tendency is to run back, to hold to something, to settle in some belief, and to avoid the real confrontation. And that is what makes it all very complex. So even though the steps in itself are not so difficult and complex, but because there is this tendency in us working to run away, to avoid, to not confront that what is inconvenient, disturbing, painful, and to what you call in German, push it under the carpet, unter den Teppich kehren. This is the tendency, this is what is very delicate, this is what is important that we become aware. That is not a solution. That is a postponement. And through the postponement, it is not getting better, it is getting worse, because we are remaining in those beliefs and the life energy is trapped in those patterns of reaction, and it is working undercurrently. It is consuming energy. It is blocking our perception. It is influencing our decisions. It is affecting every area of our further steps in life. So the more you consider and confront it all clearly, the more it will become transparent to you that there is a great urgency. And this is what I am trying to bring your attention to. Recognize this urgency and allow the urgency to be felt by you. Because when you feel the urgency, when you see that there is some great possibility, but also a great danger, and we all have these decisions to make individually in our lives, the way we connect, the way we go about the reality, the way we go into the life process in the society, in the world, in connection with other living beings, in connection with what we call nature in the whole. In reality, we don't exist separate from the nature. We are part of that nature. The nature is manifesting in us and outside us. But you can see that we are having to use words and concepts which are indicating something, but it is in conscious way of dealing with it that we understand that we have to go beyond these words, beyond these concepts, to experience the reality the way it is. So this becoming aware of the interconnectedness and becoming aware of the deeper potential in us and recognizing the interconnectedness of the reality individually is very, very basic, very, very decisive. And another thing which is in the dealing with the challenges what we have is also a factor which has to be brought into consideration, and that is how in our unconscious entanglement, in our fear, in our desires, in our greed, we can be manipulated, and we also unconsciously, very often unwillingly, manipulate each other. And this is one of the very challenging, very frightening factor which we need also to bring into attention. Because only through becoming aware of what is our weakness, what is our basis of misunderstanding, what way we get trapped, we are also able to prevent that from happening. We get manipulated through our entanglement in fear or through our clinging to our desires and greed in a blind way. Now, let there be no misunderstanding. Desires are part of our game of life. Through desire we create, and through desire we can also destroy. That is the problem. So desire is not the problem in itself. It is our unconscious entanglement in desires which leads to it becoming more of a greed and consolidating into all kind of further negative processes where we don't want to see the reality, whether we are only in a defensive state. It is very significant when we human beings starts bringing attention to these basic factors, because that is what makes the real difference. It is not a question of collecting more information and becoming more knowledgeable. It's not a question of discussing and philosophizing. It's a question of looking how we are reacting in life. For example, One may know so many things about this and that and have so much information collected. But when you are confronted in a situation, in the middle of a challenge, in the middle of a crisis, from where does your reaction come? Is it a blind, automatic, unconscious reaction coming from your conditioned state in the belief of you being separate from the whole? Or is there the awareness? Is there the perception? Is there the insight? Is it working? And you can see that that is one of the real challenges. That is one of the real traps. Because you may know so many things, and we have in the world so much information. So many people know so many things. It is not that the information is missing. But when do we start assimilating this information? When do we start absorbing the sense behind these words and concepts? When do we start recognizing where it is pointing out and move in the direction where we need to move in order to experience the reality directly and deeply? And that is not cheap. Especially considering that we have so many ways to avoid the confrontation. Not only alcohol and drugs, but we can in so many ways engage ourselves with this and that, go into all kind of settlements to not face our fears, our pain, our hurt feelings, and also all the frightening thoughts or feelings which arise in us, which we ourselves cannot accept and deal with. And that is the thing, what is important, that we need to first of all see that we have different patterns of reaction possible. We have different factors working in us. So when we want to understand, we have to accept and not go into the fighting approach. Because in following the fighting approach, we are trapped in the belief of the duality. We are trapped in an inner division. And that is dissipating our energy. We are fighting as if one hand is fighting with another hand. There is no winner or loser. We feel tired after a while and we feel helpless. So many people are, after some period of struggle, not understanding the nature of the reality, giving up, resignating, and thinking that it's not possible to get different. So you can see in lives of people, they make many New Year's decisions to be different, to go differently in the next year and to improve and bring some better qualities. But very often it doesn't work because it is gone about in a fighting way. It is gone without understanding the nature of our reality. So a very important factor is to accept and respect oneself with all what is there and realize that you are connected with the wholeness of the reality in an inseparable way. That the idea of being separate from the whole through our identification with our body and the personality is good for the game we play, but the reality is deeper. The reality is different. It's a deeply interconnected reality. Until we realize this, we are going on in an approach of struggle, fighting with ourselves, fighting with the others, trying to keep our image, trying to pretend that everything is okay, trying to give everybody the impression that I have everything under control and I'm strong. And often we don't succeed in it. Often we feel lost, and then we start resignating, we start getting depressed, we get into all kinds of psychological problems. and get into all kind of negative developments through that. So we have to be very kind to ourselves. We have to be very compassionate with ourselves. We have to accept and respect ourselves, but be wakefully with it, because it's not just a question of appeasing and trying to say everything is okay. No, there's some real work to be done. And that is to mirror, to see, to be wakefully present, to observe all what is there in oneself, so that we can see the interconnectedness of it and come to the recognition, come to the insight that it is all a question of where we let the life energy go. We can let the life energy get trapped unconsciously and automatically in certain patterns of reaction, or by observing it, becoming aware in what way this entanglement is happening, disentangle the energy, disconnect this automatic link, and allow the energy to be free. And this is what is very important to realize. That is why it is so significant, because when your energy is free and not trapped in any of these judgments, any of these negative reaction patterns, which are not coming from your intelligence, which are coming from misunderstanding, then you see that there is for no reason joy. There's for no reason a certain state of clarity and well-beingness. And you are able to answer to the challenges more clearly, more intelligently. So what I am talking about is not doing some kind of sacrifice for the sake of humanity or for the sake of your future. No, I am asking you to be courageously honest, courageously plain, to face the reality the way it is. And the fact is also, reality is what is there, what is real. Illusions are there in our mind, and we cannot hold to it, we cannot settle in it. And that is what we need also to be aware of. In our misunderstanding, we are trying to hold to all kind of illusions. And it's a question of time. Either when we are confronted with very painful situations, or when the death comes, when you realize you cannot hold to all these illusions. The reality is different. So when the reality is different, why not face the reality now, when you are capable, when you are having the intelligence, when you are not trapped in anything? Start facing it, start looking at it. And then you see that even though in the beginning it is not so easy, in the process it liberates you. That's why Buddha used to say, the illusions are sweet in the beginning, but bitter in the end. But the truth is the other way around. It's bitter in the beginning because it's not going according to our concepts and beliefs and what we want and how we want. But in facing the reality, in bringing up the courage, you realize that something very deep happens in you. Your inner division is disappearing. You are not taking sides with one part or the other part. You are rising above this taking side approach and confronting the wholeness. And that gives a deep state of relaxation in you. That brings a quality of peacefulness deep within. And that is what enables you also to realize the wondrousness of this life, the beauty of this life, the incredible, ungraspable intelligence, playfulness, aesthetical beauty, compassion, love, which is behind the whole creation, the whole celebration, what is there in this manifestation of life. And when it becomes your realization, not because somebody else is telling to you, it's not enough when you believe in it. When it becomes through your inquiry, through your courageous and honest encounter with that what is your own realization, then nobody can take it away from you. Then you see that what other way to be with life than being with the truth. We are in Freiburg, in the University of Freiburg, in the entrance area. There is a writing in golden letters. I heard it's a biblical statement and it's very beautiful. What it says in translation, only the truth can liberate you. Only the truth can make you free. Nur die Wahrheit kann euch frei machen. It's a very basic statement, because we are not trying to put on a show and to make anybody believe, because finally it is not a question of what anybody else believes. Finally it is a question of our connection to our Creator, our connection to our truth. We can make anybody in the world believe this or that and put on a show and create all kind of illusions around, but it will not stay sooner or later. It has to be confronted. So our responsibility is not just to this person or that person, this country or that country, this society or that society. Deep within our responsibilities towards the Creator, and that is very, very, very important to realize it. Let me just, before we come to any questions, bring an anecdote from the mystical tradition of the Sufis. In the Sufi tradition, there is a anecdote, there's a situation where, in the context of a Sufi master and his disciples, there was one disciple who the other disciples felt that the master is being more kind or compassionate or more sensitive towards him. And it became a kind of envy in the others. It became some kind of jealousy, and they started talking all kind of things around. So it all came to the ears of the Sufi master. And one day he called all the disciples together. And he had a basket full of certain fruit which needs to be cut and open. We can say, for the understanding, I don't know what fruit he had really, but say an apple. He had a basket full of apples. And then he gave everybody one apple and said, go and open this fruit where nobody is seeing. So everybody went into very secretive places where it is dark and where all the doors are closed and all kind of very special places. And almost everybody came back with the open fruit to the master and said, now we have found a place and I have opened it and come. But this one particular disciple, about whom the others were envious, he was not to be seen. He has not yet come back. So the Sufi master said, where is this man? I don't see him. Then the other said, he's somewhere, we don't know what he's doing, we can look for him. And then so some of them went to look for him and found him somewhere in a kind of uncertain state. And then he said that the master is asking that you come, so come. So he came back, and then the Sufi master asked him, what is the matter? Your fruit is not open. He said, yes, I did not find a place. He said, oh, you didn't find a place where nobody can watch you? Said, yes, I could find many places where no other human beings or no someone is there, but I could not find a place where the Creator is not with me, where the Creator cannot see me. This is a very deep hint for anybody who wants to consider and go deeper. We are not separated from the whole. We are not separated from the wonder. We are existing in that basis. That is why life is so mysterious. We cannot reduce it into a knowledge, but we can go about our life in such a way that we can make it a blessing, or we can get trapped in our misunderstanding and make it look like a curse. Nobody is punishing us. Nobody is creating a hell for us. But yet, through our misunderstanding, we can create the hell for us. It is so simple as that. We have fire, we have water, we have different elements. If we go with the fire carelessly and it starts burning everything around, it is not that the fire is punishing us. It is not that anybody else is creating hell for us. It is our not understanding the nature of fire. You can see it in another area. For example, we have so many electric wires all over here. It is so practical, so valuable when we understand the way it is functioning, the way it can be used. It becomes a blessing for us. But if we go without the understanding, we get into a drunken state and go carelessly and cut open these wires and it starts giving shock. It can be electrocuting one, it can be killing one, it can be destructive. But nobody is there to punish us. There are certain aspects in the basis for the life process. And we have to try to understand it. We have to come in terms with it. And this is our individual responsibility. And there is an urgency for it because we can make that what is there as a potential a reality and realize the paradise we are in. Or we can get trapped in the misunderstandings and believe that it's all problematic, it's all hell, and go into fighting and go into destructivity, creating suffering and pain for oneself and each other, and drown in it. Life has given us the freedom, life has given us the chance to finally decide things for ourselves. So there is a great responsibility. The Creator is supporting, yet the Creator also is very respectful and has given us the freedom. So it's a very delicate thing. It is our part to try to understand. So I was recently telling some friends I will write an article or a little booklet or something with the title, Consider the Creator Compassionately. Because unless you see that the whole creation is there, not accidentally, not so blindly, it is not some kind of a curse. We are here, blessed to be here, blessed with the capacity to discover, to realize, to flower, and to be deeply fulfilled. So I leave it in this point for today. Tomorrow we'll have again some time for the talks. And if there are any questions in anyone who's participating from here or elsewhere, then we can take the time for that. If no questions are there, we conclude for this evening now.